Game 1 of the Western Conference Finals goes to the Mavericks. The road winners, 108-105 at the Target Center. Morgan, Minnesota's gotten a lot of love, and they deserve it.
Yeah.
Just sent the defending champs home. But I do think, big picture-wise, people have been sleeping on the Mavs a little bit, overlooking what they have accomplished in the playoffs. And what they did tonight was beyond impressive.
It definitely was. I didn't know people were sleeping on the Mavs because I feel like when you look at the Western Conference and the way people have been talking about the Western Conference all year long, it's like, it's stacked, it's this, that, whatever. And then you saw the leap that the Mavs took at the end of the regular season and into the postseason. I know everyone's so high on the T-Wolves and what they've been able to accomplish at such a high level. But yeah, the Mavs, I don't think anyone's sleeping on them anymore.
They shouldn't be, because tonight was a big-time performance, and it starts with their two stars, Kyrie and Luka. Why are you looking at me like that?
Because I didn't even know that was an angle. I didn't even know that was a thing. I was like, I feel like now we're at the point, if anything, if you look at the 4 teams that are left, it's like people have been sleeping on the Pacers. Fine, whatever. I get that. But with all the other teams, it's like no one sleeps on Luka. Everyone always has such high praise for Luka.
But I think the conversation going into the series was so much about, hey, the Wolves' depth. I talked about this. Their size, the perimeter defense. They got a lot that they can throw at the Dallas Mavericks.
Sure.
Does Dallas have enough? Can they get enough from the others to step up? Can Luka still be as productive? Game 1, the answer was yes. And I think the biggest swing, and it's something we had talked about, is Anthony Edwards wanted the task of defending Kyrie Irving. And he said that on national TV. People are going to make that a big deal. I don't mind that Anthony Edwards said that.
It.
The guy embraces it. He's a competitor. I'm cool with it. But the challenge there is he going to have enough on the other end? And as this game went on, the guy looked gas. And he could not stay in front of Kyrie Irving. That's not a shot at Anthony Edwards. This is Kyrie Irving we're talking about. He needed to be aggressive. Kyrie was, and he torched him.
Yeah, and I think when you do look at that for Ant, how many times did Reggie Miller go, Ant's not okay, he's grimacing, what's going on with him? And I'm like, is something wrong with him? And then finally he got to the conclusion that he's like, okay, he's exhausted. He can't be explosive right now. And that's what you started to see from Ant, right? He wasn't being explosive on the offensive end, but then going to the defensive end, trying to obviously defend someone like Kyrie Irving. This is something that we talked about in our preview, was just like, okay, it's going to be a difficult task, not from the standpoint of just, Kyrie and his ability to score anywhere on the floor, at the rim, in the mid-range, from three-point line, whatever. But it's the ball handling. It's having to move laterally, having to sprint back with Kyrie when Kyrie was the one who was pushing the shit out of the basketball to start this game and really keeping the Mavericks in it.
He was sensational, especially in that first half. He had 24 points at the half, finished this game with 30 points. In the first half, he was 11 of 14 shooting. He ends up finishing 1 of 9 in the second half, but Luka stepped up. But sticking with Kyrie, it felt like even when there were switches, like he beat McDaniel's backdoor on a beautiful play. He's getting to his spots, and he is using his biggest asset, and that's right, his ball handling, his ability to push. He knew that this Minnesota team was coming off a 7-game series.
He mentioned that after the first quarter timeout. He mentioned it after the game just now, too.
And that's why I love what Dallas did tonight. I feel like Dallas took what Minnesota gave them. Mm-hmm. Of course, Kyrie was aggressive early, but the big theme, I know Stan Van Gundy, I think said it 92 times, drop coverage. This is no secret. Minnesota's going to have drop coverage with Rudy Gobert. But Dallas didn't panic. You know what they did? They just got to their spots. They know that if Kyrie or Luka have the ball and there's drop coverage, the options are limitless, right? It's like, hey, they can look to score. They can hit the mid-range. They can attack the rim. Or if you got Gafford or Lively in there, you're throwing the lob. And they destroyed Minnesota in drop coverage.
Absolutely. And you look at the way that, especially when it was Rudy Gobert and drop, it was if you brought him up high enough, you're taking him away from the basket. And even if he was going in drop, it was never quick enough to recover on a lob threat like Gafford or Lively. And then when you have two people in Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving who can pass the shit out of the basketball and be super precise, especially when it comes to an alley-oop, I mean, that's exactly what was going down. So Kyrie, even when he had his looks in the mid-range or could get that little stutter explosive, go to the basket, right to left, whatever hand he wanted to use, he was still getting others involved. I know he only finished with 4 assists, but it felt like the way that he was getting others involved with, whether it was with the pocket pass or even just being able to get that defense to have to think twice when they were collapsing on him in the middle. I mean, that's exactly what Dallas wanted to do, and they executed their game plan early on because Kyrie Irving started setting the tone.
Kyrie shredded them in the paint too. Dallas shredded Minnesota in the paint. 62-38 in the paint tonight. 62-38 is because of their ability to attack that drop coverage. They were relentless with it, and I thought they did a great job. It got so bad that late in this game, Minnesota abandoned it. I mean, even Gobert's coming out, starting with the hedge, and they start doubling. They tried some different things, and this is something that's great for Jason Kidd to see, is they made that adjustment in game. Well, now we get to see what that blitz looks like, how we feel. Well, guess what? When you've got Kyrie and Luka, two guys who are great decision makers, they can handle anything you throw at them. And tonight, they attacked the drop, and then when that blitz came, they made the right play.
And here's the other thing that was going on. You look at the three-point shots for Dallas, 6 of 25. Wow. It's not like they were even making all of their three-point shots, right? So it's not even like they were getting all of these opportunities to make all these spray threes because Kyrie was driving or the defense was just having a miscommunication or whatever it was. Once they started adjusting that second half and started blitzing and or, like we said, hedging a little bit more, you saw Rudy Gobert coming up a little bit more, trying to stunt the ball handler. And it still wasn't enough because the ball handler, being mostly Kyrie, but then in the second half being Luka, was making that quick decision. And the quick decision wasn't always making sure that someone was getting an open look from three. It was so much more than that.
Sticking with the three-point shooting for a second. If I would have told you coming into this game that Dallas would shoot 24% from three on the road, they go 6 of 25, and that Minnesota would knock down 18 of 49, you'd be like, tough night for
I would have told you.
Dallas. Mm-hmm. But Dallas outplayed them in, I think, every other aspect of the game. And for the Mavs, I think the hope is you could start knocking down threes. I don't think it's sustainable to win a series by knocking down just 6 threes in a game. But I think PJ will hit a couple of more. I think Luka can hit more. Kyrie didn't even make one. He was 0 for 3 in this game. So the fact that they could win a game being that 6 of 25 from three.
That terrible from
That's
three-point
a big
land.
deal.
And you talk about where Kyrie was shooting a lot of his shots. Well, you said this to me at the half. He had 18 of his 24 points in the paint, right? At the half. And so he was just doing a great job of being aggressive. And this is something that I think everyone has talked about with Kyrie. Like, he turns it on in the second half. He's averaging 6 points in the first half in the postseason right now. What else can he do? Well, he showed up. And if he wasn't there, it was not looking good because I felt like Luka was not making sharp decisions. I mean, how many times his body language looked down and out when he wasn't getting a foul called for him. And this was something we talked about too in our preview. It was which team was going to do less bitching and was going to have the better body language, basically. Mainly looking at Kat and Luka. And I thought Kat did a great job throughout this entire game. Luka lacking whatever it was that he was doing mentally in that first half, but then being able to turn it on in that second half and really be there for his team, especially when it seemed like Minnesota started adjusting onto Kyrie and knowing what they want to do with him. And also Luka knocking down a few threes, which I feel like hasn't been his best in this postseason either.
Luka, especially in that fourth quarter, was awesome. 15 points for him in the fourth quarter. I thought early on, and I know he mentioned this post-game too, and I completely agree. I thought he was getting torched defensively. I thought he was giving Jaden McDaniels too many clean looks at three. And I know Jaden McDaniels is not known as some sharpshooter, but he has the ability to knock down the three. And once you knock down a couple, I want to see better contests from Luka in that situation. He just was really late, and this guy's in a rhythm. He's getting corner threes. That's a great look for him. Well, Jaden McDaniels was able to knock him down. Jaden in this game, by the way, ends up finishing 6 of 9 from 3. His third straight game with 20 or more. So he's providing some offense for this team and still trying to do his thing defensively.
But going back to Luka and his defense, and you're exactly right. I just thought we had seen Luka Doncic pick up his defensive game to a whole nother level. And it felt like at times Kyrie Irving was leading the pack, being like, hey guys, if I'm going to play this type of on-ball defense all game, you're going to do it too. You're going to step up your defensive effort. And Luka did not start the game like that, but then I thought he did a fantastic job late in the game. He had a few deflections. He broke up that lob to Rudy Gobert late. He was up on Conley, staying with him for a little bit, like all these little things where I'm like, that is effort. It's not even like you're tired in the beginning of the game. No, it's such an effort thing with him sometimes.
Yeah, but it's also like the game plan was like, hey, let's not probably trip as much with Jaden McDaniels. Like we'll surrender a Jaden McDaniels
and Kyle Anderson too.
Yes, and they were just like not defending Kyle Anderson. That was the game plan. And then he kind of killed him for a stretch. It was like, we're not going to defend him at all. I don't love that. Like, I understand every team in the league has guys that they label hot shooters, right? Guys that can knock them down, and cold shooters. And those guys may be more in the cold category from the perimeter. But you also have to be honest with yourself. When Jaden McDaniels started to knock them down, like, give a better contest. The problem in that matchup, too, is Jaden McDaniels is pretty athletic. So if Luka comes out on him too hard, Jaden has the ability, which he did a couple of times in that first half, to put the ball on the floor and go make something happen. I think, like Luka said post-game, like, I think he'll clean that up. He understands that. Mm-hmm. And you're right. Fourth quarter, this guy took over with big shots, big defensive plays. And I thought those were swing moments. I mean, you had that stretch where it's 102-101, I believe. Cat forces a turnover, and you're going, oh, man, here comes Minnesota. They've got the lead. Turnover. We go the other way. McDaniels gets caught under the basket, and Luka is ready to go. Or when McDaniels looks to kick it back out, Luka is right there to grab that, push the other way. It leads to a P.J. Washington corner three. All of a sudden, it's 104-102, just like that. Then you were just talking about the lob that was broken up. That's a tough play. Yeah. I thought we were watching. I thought, oh, man, Gobert got a clean lob. Yep. Luka was there to break that up. That was huge. And then you talk about on the other end. Okay, so they started to blitz more. So Lively comes up like he's going to set a screen for Luka, but retreats, and Luka pulls back out, goes ISO on McDaniels. What did he do here? Give him a little boom. Mid-range jumper in his face.
It's like, where are you going with that? Give him a little bump?
A little boom. It was a big-time shot.
Okay, yeah.
Do you not remember it?
No, I know exactly what you're talking about, and this is the thing. He did that. He started doing that throughout this game, especially when Rudy continued to go into drop. Like, even when they started switching it back up, even in the second half. And when that would happen, what he would do, he'd get McDaniels from the initial screen on his hip. And what he'd do, he'd keep screening him off. And McDaniels tried to do a great job of recovering, coming back around, but Luka takes up so much space.
He's a big guy, dude.
There's no joke there. He takes up a lot of space. And when he takes up that space and does a good job of shielding off his guy and then just kind of creating that space and going off to the side.
He feels them on him, and he knows how to make sure he stays there a little bit.
Whatever you said. Boom.
I'm just talking about the ISO play, though. That ISO play was disgusting.
He was doing basically the same thing, even with that, trying to create that space with getting him on his hip.
But my point is the drop coverage is he gets a little bit of a cleaner look in these situations. This was taking Jaden one-on-one. There's been so much talk about that matchup and how Jaden could make life more challenging for Luka. Dude, Luka thrives off making big shots, and he made big shots. It seemed like all the shots he made, I felt like in some ways, especially in that fourth quarter when they went away from the drop coverage, when he hit that three, that was a contested three.
Oh, yeah.
He hits a contested three. That was a tough shot.
Well, he had an open look, but then he was like, no, this is a little too open. And I mean, I'm sure it's more like he likes to be in rhythm and wants to shoot off the dribble, and that's exactly what it was. And Ant, at that point, was exhausted, maybe didn't have the same ability to get all the way up in his face or in his space, and so Luka felt confident. It was fantastic.
He had 33 points, 8 assists, 6 rebounds, also 3 steals in this game. He did on 12 of 26. He was 3 of 10 from downtown, 6 of 7 at the free throw line.
Damn.
Luka was special. And that's really the difference of this game. Luka and Kyrie, star level.
Star level.
The stars on the other end did not have star nights. Cat was 6 of 20 and Ant was 6 of 16.
Before we get to them, I think it's very important though to give Derek Lively.
Oh yeah, I wasn't done. I mean, I was gonna go back.
Okay, because I'm ready to go to the T-Wolves and talk about what they didn't do, and especially when they came out looking like the better team. But I felt like there were some others on this Mavs squad that was just doing a great job as well. And Derek Lively being able to grab 11 rebounds, but then going 4-4 from the field, just being efficient and everything. It was great.
I broke my pen.
Oh my God.
Lively, Gafford combined tonight, Morgan. It was impactful for them. 19 points, 20 rebounds, 3 blocks. I thought Lively was fantastic.
I agree.
You know, PJ Washington has a tough matchup trying to defend Cat, right?
Yeah.
I felt like they did a fantastic job on Cat. Like, it seemed like every time he got a shot, even if he got by PJ, the help was there, and Gafford and Lively were up to contest it. It didn't feel like Cat got a lot of clean looks in this game. And that's a huge credit to Dallas's defense for being on the string. And this is kind of honestly, when you look at the series, the big difference for this series for Minnesota versus the last series against Denver, Denver doesn't have rim protection. Jokic isn't blocking shots. Who's blocking shots? When you look at this Dallas team, they've got the length and size everywhere. And you mentioned Lively and Gafford, who were really good in this one. PJ Washington, I know he missed shots.
Derek Jones Jr.
His defensive impact. Derek Jones Jr., dude, this guy's getting paid this offseason because of what he is doing defensively. He's taking on the tough matchups, and I think he's done a great job with them.
There's so many times where I'm not even questioning his presence in a game, you know, like, and what he's doing even on the offensive end. He ended up with 8 points, 4 rebounds, 4 of 9 from the field. But in his 35 minutes, just his aggressive nature, his energy, it never goes away. And it's exactly what you need, especially if you are switching your guys at times. Someone else is getting put on Ant. You got to make sure you just always have energy, a body, a hand in his face, because even when Ant was tired there at the end, he started making some big threes too.
Ant finishes with 19 points, 11 rebounds, 8 assists. He was 6 of 16, 5 of 12 from 3. And that jumps out to me. 12 of his 16 attempts came from 3 in this game. And I think partly is, one, when he did get inside the paint, Dallas did a great job collapsing. And how many times would you see Dallas defenders come swiping down to make life hard? He wasn't getting a ton of clean looks at the rim. 2, I think especially in that second half, when he was 2 of 9 shooting in the second half, 2 of 7 from 3, he settled a little bit. He didn't have a lot left in the tank because of the matchup against Kyrie. And that's going to be tough for him. Now, I do expect him to look better. I think you're coming off a 7-game series. Now you know what's in store, what you have to bring. I think he'll look a little better in game 2 for sure.
Well, I think the broadcast was talking about how he didn't even score in that third quarter, right? And you still saw Minnesota go on that run. I believe that ended up being in the fourth when they went on that run. It's like Mavs went on a run and then they went on a run. And I'm like, holy shit, the Mavs are going to lose this game. And it felt like the mistakes that the T-Wolves kept making toward the end, and then the Mavs doing a good job of just their stars really stepping up. That was like the biggest thing that was factoring in at the end. The stars were not giving enough at the end for the T-Wolves, and the stars being Cat and Ant. And again, not acting like it's easy. I mean, you saw how dead Ant's legs looked there at the end, especially after having to guard Kyrie throughout this game. But yeah, it wasn't enough. And I mean, you can ask more from the other guys. And the other guys, Naz Reid, Kyle Anderson, they were giving so much to start off this game too. And I was like, this team looks like the better team until the end.
26-22 Dallas in the fourth quarter, but Minnesota with 5 turnovers that turned into 9 points for Dallas in the fourth quarter. That was big. I think this is going to be a close series. It's going to be fun, but I'm beyond impressed with how Dallas came out. They win that points in the paint battle, as we talk about. They out-rebounded them 48-40. They got them +1 on offensive rebounds, 11-10 as well. It was just an impressive outing, and I think Dallas showed tonight, it's like, hey, they're not scared of this moment. You know, I think their road here, people say, is not as difficult as the road that Minnesota had. They had some adversity with the Luka knee injury, and they had to fight through that, and they got through that, just took on a talented OKC team, and now they're taking on the Minnesota T-Wolves, who have been playing the best basketball in the playoffs. Winning that game one is big-time stuff.
It's huge, and it's interesting looking at this game for the T-Wolves, and I just keep thinking, like, you need a team win, right? Like, you need to make sure everyone's involved. I feel like that's when you're seeing some of these teams in the postseason really see success. But you have to involve everyone while still doing your job as a star. And that's the only, because even Rudy Gobert, a solid enough game for him, you know, with 12.7 rebounds. I felt like at times the only part that he was really maybe lacking there was not his effort on defense, but just his ability to adjust quicker, right? Like, I know you want to get that from your coaching staff, but at the same time, it just felt like, too, like, as someone who is the defensive player of the year, like, why couldn't he just make that shift at times as well? And I just felt like for these leaders, for Cat, for Ant, for Gobert, there's just things out there that they really have to do better going forward.
They'll clean it up. They'll make it interesting, I think, for sure. I think for Minnesota defensively, you definitely have to throw some different looks at Kyrie and Luka. The drop coverage is fine, but force them to make some decisions. Like, they make great decisions, but you saw it a couple of times when they had to blitz and they forced it to Lively or Gafford. Those guys are in a situation where they have to make a quick decision. And if your help defense is there to collapse, well, you probably like the outcome of having Gafford or Lively try to make a play. They can't get away with that all the time, though. Like, that's just something that Dallas can adjust to that, too. But that's what the series is about. This is a 7-game series. It's all about tweaks and adjustments.
Hey, that's what we talked about going into this one. Exactly. Like, how are you going to make this in-series adjustments? Sure. But it's the in-game adjustments that are going to matter as well. And we saw adjustments being made in this game one. And it was fun to see, because that's what I think made it such a competitive battle between these two teams. But it was just coming down to the wire of, like, who isn't going to make certain mistakes, who's going to be more crisp. And it felt like, obviously, the Stars with the Mavs were doing just a little bit more there at the end.
What did you guys think of game one? What kind of adjustments need to be made? Do you think Dallas is, like, the favorite now because they're up 1-0?
Oh,
they finally win a game one. Give it up to them. Make sure to comment below, hit the thumbs up, and subscribe.
Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. They tell you what they know. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. Deuce and Mo. The podcast that you know.